Okay, so in the previous class, so we observed how to create a class and methods and how to pass importing and exporting parameters of the method, and also we observed how to call a method instance method in the program, right, by creating the object. So we have seen both the new ABAP syntax and the old ABAP syntax to create the object. So today we'll see few more additional features of the class. First we'll see constructor. What is a constructor? Constructor is a special method. Constructor is a kind of method. It's one of the method, right? So when this constructor is going to be executed, so the constructor will automatically execute when we create the object. So the whatever the code inside the constructor method will automatically execute. Okay, this is a method. Clear? So the constructor method can have only importing parameters. It cannot return any output. Okay, the constructor method cannot return any output. It can just accept the input and execute some functionality. So when this method will execute?
When we create an object.
Yeah, when we create a object for the class, it will automatically execute, right? So constructor can only accept the input. It cannot return any output. Okay. For example, if you want to set some default values for the class, whatever the methods in the class, so has to be use those default values, right? So that before executing the methods, we're going to set some default values so that all the methods can access the default values. Okay. So when you create the object, that method will automatically execute, and whatever the code you return inside the constructor method will automatically execute. Okay. But for the rest of the methods, what you need to do? Rest of the methods you need to call explicitly, right? Correct?
Yes.
Those won't be execute automatically. Only constructor method will automatically execute. Okay. Okay. That's about constructor method. And what is the other important point about constructor?
Accept, accept inputs.
Yeah. It won't return any output. The other important point about constructor is what is the name of the constructor method? Can we give any name? Can we provide any method name like get data, read data, get Mara like that? No, the name of the constructor method should be always constructor only. Okay, you cannot give any random names. Wherever you are creating a constructor method for the class, that method name should be constructor. Okay, clear?
Yes, sir.
The constructor method can be two types, instance or static. The another feature in the class methods or classes are attributes. Okay, so what are the attributes? Attributes are kind of data objects, so which we create or define in the class so that all the methods of the class can access the data. Attribute can be a internal table like structure or work area like structure or variable like structure. It is a data object where the data of this attribute can be accessed by all the class methods within the class. So attributes are global to the class. Okay. If you take importing parameters of one method, can we access that importing parameters value in another method? Can we access importing parameters data of one method in another method? No, we cannot. That importing parameter only specific to that method. Okay. But if you take attributes, so the attributes are global to the class. Whatever the values we assign to the attributes, that can be accessed throughout the class. Okay. So these attributes are internal to the class. Okay. And we can define attribute with any type like internal table type or work area type or variable type. Right. Can you tell me one thing? We are creating multiple methods, right, in the same class. Yes, right. We can
Yes.
create multiple methods in the same class, right?
Yes, sir.
If
Yes,
you
sir.
want to if you want to distribute data between all the methods, for example, there is a requirement that all the methods should access some common data, some global data. How can we make sure? How can we provide the data to all the methods? How can, like in general, how can we provide the data to the methods? Some data. We can provide data. We can give data to the methods in the form of importing parameters, right? We are defining one importing parameter and we are providing data in the form of internal table or work area, right? Correct? And method is using that data and performing some calculations and return the output. Correct? In the form of exporting parameter or changing, right? But if we have a requirement, all the methods should access some common data. What we need to do? So we can achieve that through attributes. So attributes can be accessible to all the methods. Whatever the data available in attributes can be accessible by all the methods. Clear? Is everyone clear?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, attribute can be internal table like structure, work area like structure, or variable like structure. Depends on how we defined it. If we use table type, it acts as a internal table. If we use if you use structure or table, it acts as a work area like structure, right? Now we'll see how to create attributes and how to pass the data to attributes and how to access attributes data inside the methods. Okay, we'll quickly create one sample program on it. We'll make use of constructor and attributes. Okay, we'll set some default values to the attributes by using a constructor method. So what is the transaction code to create a global class?
SE24.
C24.
SC24. So this is the class we created earlier. I will create a new class. So let's keep it as a final class because we're not going to not going to implement any inheritance. Okay, save.
Sir, in real time when we're creating the class and methods, can we, in that place also we need to take it, sir?
So which one?
Final.
If you don't want to use like if there is no inheritance, if there is no scope of inheritance, so you can make it as final. Again, if you want to if you want to inherit this class, you can just go to the class attributes and just remove the final checkbox. That's it.
Okay. So later also we can do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when you are working on OData services, right? So you'll be working more on this inheritance concept
Okay.
in general in these days. But again, inheritance is common in any object-oriented programming, so that you can reuse whatever the functionality that is already available. Okay, instead of creating one more time or instead of implementing one more time.
Okay.
But in function modules, that is not possible using functionality of or properties of one function module in another. It is very slow. So yeah, the difference between function modules and class methods. It's a very important interview question, right? Function modules follows procedural programming approach. Class methods follows object-oriented programming model.
Like,
Function modules uses function group, where methods uses class. Okay. Function modules has only single instance, right? And when you call a function module, all the function group instance will be loaded. Whatever the function modules, all will be loaded to the memory. Whatever the function modules available in the function group, everything will be loaded into the memory. Even you call a single function module, right? But here in object-oriented class methods, we are going to create the instance by using creating the object. We are going to create an individual instance, right? For each object, and each instance contains its own memory. Okay. Okay. So let's create some attributes first. For example, I have a language, I have a language key where all the methods of this class should access that value. Okay. So let me define one attribute for language. For example, we'll follow some naming convention. I'll use some GV lang. What is the level? Level means, is it a
question.
instance attribute, static attribute, or constant attribute? So you know what is instance attribute. So it will be accessible through creating the object, right? So it has every attribute, every instance attribute will have its own memory, right? By creating the separate object, each object will have its own memory, its own instance, right? What is static attribute? Static attributes are, it's a global attribute. Like there is a single instance for the static attributes. We can call this using class reference. If you are defining in the local classes, how to define instance attribute using a data statement. But when you are defining a static attribute, what is the statement you have to use? Class hyphen data. When you are working in the local classes, here we are just selecting the option static attribute. But when we are creating the local classes are, I told you, right? We are creating the global classes in SC24. We can also define and implement local classes inside the program. We'll see in the further sessions. When you are creating the local classes, how can you define a static attribute using a class hyphen data statement? Okay, but instance attribute only class. What is constant? Constant is a constant value. You don't need to assign any value. So you just need to assign a constant here. As you know, you cannot change the value of the constant. Okay, but attributes values can be changed. You can pass or you can update the existing values inside the attributes. Okay, let's create the instance attribute. Visibility level is public. Public, these are access specifiers, public, private, and protect. So that public means even this attribute can be accessed outside. When you are, you see, when you have implemented the inheritance, we can observe this. So associated type. What is the associated type? For language, we need to provide the type reference. That might be any data element. What is it? For example, I'll provide I'll provide this field, okay, as a reference. Or you can provide any data element from any text table. Is this pass? What is the data element for any text language key? This one, sparse is the data element. You can provide that one also. Okay. Now let's define one work area like structure. For example, I'll define it like this: GS. GS in the sense a structure. Um, some data, some PO data. What is the type you have to provide? So let's assume it as a these attributes acts as a work area like structure, which can accept, which can hold a single record. For that, we can take a table reference, for example, EKKO, or or if you want this attribute with a specific fields, what you need to do?
Types.
Structure name.
Create a structure, create a data dictionary structure with required fields. That is one option. What is the other option? Define it in types. Okay. For now, let's keep AKKO and go to types and go to types and create the type. For example, ZTY underscore PO data. So it's in by default, it's in private section. Let's make it public. So click on this here and create the type structure. See, have you observed this? Did we define it here? Did we write this syntax here? ZV lang
No.
types pras? No, it is automatically created here. We just defined as an attribute, right? That's why data ZV underscore lang type pras. It is automatically defined here. See, whatever you observed, we are using some graphical options here. We are using some navigations here in the global class. How it is doing, like looks like in background, it is converting it to some class, local class or something. It is automatically generating those statements, those syntaxes, right? Now create the type structure. For example, we'll list out the fields: type, EBLN. I'm taking fields from different tables. Yeah, that's enough for now. CTY underscore PO data. Go to attributes and instead of this provide a type structure. Okay. Now it will act as a work area like structure, and where whatever the data available in this attribute can be accessed by all the methods. Okay. Now let's create one attribute with the internal table like structure. For example, I'll take like this GT. GT means some global attributes. PO data. What I have to use here? First, let me create a table type. Click on here or click on anywhere. It will take you to the types. Create one table type. How to create a table type? Types. For example, ZTY underscore T underscore PO data.
Type standard table of
Type is type structure. So now this acts as a table type. Copy this table type and it is automatically created in types. Go to attributes. This instance attribute. Yeah, you have created three attributes. One attribute is a language field. The other two attributes, this is a PO data attribute with work area like structure and PO data attribute with internal table like structure. Okay. How can you populate data to these attributes? Where you can populate? Inside the methods, right? Inside the methods, you can populate the data as well as you can access the data in any method. So these attributes can be accessible to all the methods of the class. Okay, clear? Let's see how to populate the data. And before that, is everyone clear how to create the attribute? So instead of
yes, sir.
this, you can use any data dictionary structure or a table. Depends on the requirement. Okay. Let's create one more attribute. Some company code. Let me take it as a instant static attribute. Let's make it as a static attribute and public. I'll take Booker's data element. Let me create one constant also. Uh, I'll use GC underscore Booker's. I'll take it as a constant and we'll see how it is generating the types. It's a public one and Booker's. What it is expecting? Enter a value for constant. So you have to provide value for the constant in the initial values. When you are defining the constant, what you have to do? You have to provide a default value. So is it a character like structure or a numeric data type? What is Booker's? Is it a character
Numeric.
data type or numeric data type?
Numeric data.
Numeric data type?
Compound.
I don't think it's a numeric data type. What is Booker?
Character.
Character 4. So provide data in a single quotes. If it is a numeric data type, you don't need to provide data in single quotes. See, we're entering numbers. That doesn't mean that it's a numeric type. Okay, clear? Okay. Now let's go to the types and see. Click on anyone. Yeah. If you observe here, it is automatically created structures. Correct? One attribute with the type this one, the other attribute with type this one. Just like our work area and internal table declarations, right? It's not similar to our work area internal table declarations. This is a work area declaration and this is a internal table declaration, correct? So this acts as a global data objects for the class. Okay. So observe this class hyphen data. What is this? This is a static attribute, right? This is a static attribute. This is a instance attribute. So it is also a very important interview question. What is the difference between static attribute and instance attribute? Instance attribute has a separate instance for each object. So whatever the data, it is local to that object. Whatever the object we created, it has a separate instance. But what about the static attribute? Static attribute has only single instance, right? To define the instance attribute, we use a data statement. To define the static attribute, what is the
Hyphen
statement we
data.
need to use?
Class hyphen data.
Class hyphen data. Okay. So it's a very important interview question. When someone started asking you about object oriented, this might be the very first or second question. Difference between instance method or static method, or difference between instance attribute or static attribute. Okay. And what is the attribute? Attribute is a global data object. Global data object. So all the methods of the class can access attributes. Okay. So the interviewer might also ask, how can you share data between all the classes? What is your answer?
Attribute.
By using attribute. So you can populate some data to the attribute and you can make that data available for all the class methods. Okay. So in enhancements also, in enhancements concepts also, when we are creating the implementations for the enhancements, so attributes are very helpful to share data between different methods. You will see that when we are working on. So this is the constant. It is automatically defined it. Yeah, this is about attributes. So let's see constructor. What is constructor and how we use constructor method? So what is the rule? What is the rule for constructor method?
Name should be constructor only.
Name should be constructor. If you observe this, it is automatically populated this symbol, constructor method symbol. So all the constructor methods will have this symbol. Okay, this can be public or private or product. Let's make it as a public. So this is a instance method. Now, so when this constructor method will execute,
Whenever the object created in a class.
yeah, whenever we create the object for the class using our data statement, or we can also use new ABAP syntax. So if we have a constructor method in the class, when we are creating the object, there is small difference. If this I told you, right, constructor can accept the inputs. So when
Yes,
you are
sir.
creating the object, the constructor method is executing, right? For that reason, if this constructor method contains any importing parameters, you have to pass importing parameters in the calling program when you are creating the object. We'll see that when we are calling this. So let's go to the parameters of the constructor. So these are the parameters. It is little difference, right? Is there any option to select importing, exporting, or changing?
No.
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 By default, it is all importing. You cannot pass any input. Sorry, sorry, you cannot return any output. Let's define some input. For example, uh, im underscore language. It's not optional, it is a mandatory. Type is spras. Okay. So if you want, you can also set the default value. Now go to the methods, implement the constructor method. So here, whatever the functionality required, you can write that functionality. Okay. Whatever the functionality you need, a default functionality, which should be common to all the methods, right? That functionality can be executed here. In general, when we are working in the projects, for what reason we use constructor? To pass some default values. For example, language, to set the language or to set the currency codes, right? So to set some default values, we use a constructor method, or you can implement any functionality which should be executed by default. Okay, clear? So that you don't need to call it explicitly. So let's show the signature. So we have a attribute, right? What is that attribute? ZV underscore lang, right? Is that the attribute we have? Shall we pass some value to the attribute? ZV underscore lang equal to, okay? So I'm passing some value to the attribute. I'm setting some value to the attribute so that whatever the value available in this attribute can be accessible by all the methods, right? This is one example, or you can also write some select statements or whatever required. Okay, select. Shall we populate data to another attribute? I'll use some join. EBELN. What are the fields? EBELN, EKPO, EBLP. The other one is Matner, right?
MAKT.
MAKTR will just take EKPO Matner. We'll join only two tables from EKO, inner join. Yesterday I've interviewed one guy with 6 years, maybe 5.5 years of experience, and he doesn't know the difference between inner join and left outer join, but he's working from the past 5 years in a project. Okay, that's how IT industry works. You don't need to know everything to work in the projects. On. So if I take 5 interviews in a day, 4 guys will be using some proxies. No one is trying on their own. Everyone using some lip sync kind of methods. It is very funny. Okay, and where into table data, not IT underscore data. Shall we directly
Yeah.
populate to attributes? We'll directly populate to attributes since we are using the same structure, right? Same fields with the same order, right? We can directly populate the data to attribute instead of creating a new internal table. ZT underscore PO data up to some 10 rows. I'm not using any where condition. Okay, check the syntax. It is accepting, right? We're directly, so that attribute is acting as a internal table here. Okay, so I'm using this where I'm using this code. I'm using this in constructor, right? So go back. So let me create one more method, that is to read. material read material text. Is it a constructor method? Can we make it as a constructor method? Tell me, can we make this read material text as a constructor?
Yes.
How? No, this should be a normal method because the constructor method should contain the name of the constructor method should be always a constructor.
Okay.
Okay, you cannot use any other names for the constructor method, and you'll be having only one constructor method for each class. Can we create one more constructor method here?
No.
No, because you should have one method in like in each class with the same name, right? You cannot have two methods with the same name, right? In the same class, or if you want to try, you can try. So there is already a constructor method, right? So there should be only one constructor method. Now tell me, we're already having some PO data, right? So that we are selecting inside the constructor. We'll select material text for those records. Okay, material text for those records. Do we need any importing parameter for this? Do we need any importing parameter for this method? So what is the requirement of this method? We need to read the material text, material description for the records which you have already selected in the constructor, right? So the data that for which attribute we are for which object we are populating those records, those PO data records. We are populating it to attribute, right? This is attribute, correct? Is this attribute or not? GTPO data.
Yes, sir.
Go to attributes. This is attribute. So we are populating data to the attribute inside a constructor method. Now, what is my requirement? I want to select material text for the records which are available in attribute, right? Can we access that attribute in this method or not? Read material text. Can we access that data or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So here, do we need any importing parameter?
No.
No, we don't need any importing parameter to pass the data because the data is already accessible, right? Why you need to pass same data again, right? We just need some exporting parameter. Define one parameter. For example, or we'll create one types for the exporting parameter. ZTY underscore. Material text. It's a public type. Define the type structure here, or you can also create data dictionary structure. Begin off. For example, we'll take Matner and material text. So we are going to return these two values. So is it internal table like structure or work area like structure? Do we need to handle single record or multiple records? We're selecting up to 10 rows, right?
Internal table.
In the constructor, we are populating attribute with at least 10 records. So this should be a internal table like
Internal
structure.
table.
For that, create a table types, some zty underscore t. T indicates the table type. Okay. Type standard table of this one. Okay. Now define the exporting parameter. Where is it? Yeah. Methods. Go to methods and define a exporting parameter. Mm, ET. T means T indicates some internal table like structure. Material text. Type is exporting. And associate type is table type. Okay. Now go to the method and implement the method. How to implement the method?
Double click on
Double click on the method. Now we don't have any importing parameter. Let's select material text for all the records available in attribute. So now tell me, what is the select statement we can write here? Tell me how to write the select statement. I have already some records in attribute, right? Which are selected in the constructor.
So
Now tell me how to write the select statement. See, you should think about the scenario. We are already having records in one internal table. Now we need to select material text for those records, right? Here in the method. Now what is the select statement you have to write? Forgot everything.
Select the type numbers.
At least what is the concept we have to implement here? I'm already having records in someone internal table. I want to
See,
select
it's
corresponding records here. Next level records. What is a suitable statement? What is a suitable select statement? I don't know why you guys are thinking this much. We can use for all entries, right? Yes or not? We are already having records in the internal table. Here our internal table is attribute. And we need to select the corresponding records from MAKT, right? Material text. So what is the statement we have to write? What is the select statement we have to write here? I told you, right? We have to use for all
for
entries.
all entries.
Why are you confusing? I don't know. We have to use for all entries on attribute, right? Now write the select statement. Select, what is that? Matner, MAKT, X from MAKT. What is the next statement? For all entries in which one? Attribute, right? GT underscore PO
yes.
data, right? Since we are already having PO data records here, right? In this internal table or attribute, which are already selected in constructor method, correct? You have to think about it. When the constructor will execute, when we create the object,
Object.
when we are going to call this method, read material text, after the creating the object only, right? We cannot create directly, right? First we need to create the object, right? To create this read material text method, correct or not? in the first step, when you created the object, so whatever the code inside the constructor method will execute and it will populate the data to this attribute, GTPO data. Now, when you are executing this read material text, the data is already there in this attribute and you are going to select next level data, that is material text, by using this attribute data, right? Into
Where
select Matner, make it if it's okay for all entries in into table. We don't need to use any internal table because we are using in the same order, right? In the type same order as type structure, right? You can directly use this exporting parameter into table et underscore mat text. We are directly returning the data to exporting parameter in the select statement itself. Where what is the common field between attribute and make-at? Material number only, right? Material number equal to attribute hyphen material number. But what is required here? We have to follow for all entries conditions. Now tell
Sort.
me, when we are using material number as a common field, can we expect duplicate records in attribute or not?
Yes.
There will be multiple purchase orders with the same material number. So we'll definitely have duplicates in this scenario, right? What you need to do?
Sort.
First, we are not sure whether there is any data inside the attribute or not, right? First, in the first place, whatever the select statement we have implemented in the constructor might failed and did not select any data. We don't know, right? First check whether is there any data inside the attribute or not. Is not initial. Not initial means what? Not initial means not empty, right? Not initial means not empty. If it is not empty, then go inside. If it is not empty, then go inside. Then what is the next step? Sort, right? It should be in sorted order. Sort by which one? By which field we need to sort here in this scenario?
Material.
We need to sort it by material number. And what is the next step?
Delete adjacent duplicates.
Comparing which field?
Matter.
Material.
Because we are sorting by Matner only, right? So it will delete all the duplicate records and keep only unique
For
records.
madness, sir. Comparing mad.
Okay. Now we can use for all entries. Is this correct? Is this the correct way to use for all entries or not?
Temporary internal table.
We are directly applying delete adjacent duplicates on which one? Attribute data, right? Correct? It is deleting records from attribute by comparing material number. But that attribute data is necessary because if you compare it by purchase orders, can you find any duplicate records? No, right? We don't have any duplicate records. If you compare it by purchase order number and item number. Since we are comparing it by material number, we are able to find duplicate records and we are deleting. If you directly delete from attribute, whatever the remaining methods, let's say there are many other remaining methods in the class which is using attribute data. They need all the purchase order records. If you directly delete here from attribute, the rest of the methods cannot use all the data, right? So that don't delete directly from the internal table or attribute. Use some temporary object. Use inline declaration zt underscore So what is this statement will do? It will create one internal table exactly same as this one, ZTPO data, and it will automatically copy this internal table data to this. Now apply all these operations on this temporary internal table, so that you are not going to disturb the data inside the attribute. Okay, clear? Use this temporary internal table in the for all entry statement. Clear? Is everyone clear?
Yes, sir.
Now activate it. Our code is activate. Now let's call this in our program. First activate all the classes, all the objects related to our class. These are also relevant to our class, right? Select everything and activate. Our class is activated, and what is the next step? Call or create a sample program to call this method in our program. So create a program. Type is executable. So as it is initialization, at selection screen, start of selection. Inside the start of selection, I'm going to create my class. What is the functionality we implemented in our previous program, in PO data program? Do you have any selection screen inputs? Yeah, we have company code and data as selection screen inputs. That's why we have created some importing parameters, right, for these methods. But here we don't have any importing parameters because we don't have any inputs, right? Do we have any selection screen inputs here? We don't require any selection screen inputs. First, create the object for the class. What is the statement to create the object? I'll use inline declaration, okay? Data of, for example, LO underscore OBJ. Tell me, what is the syntax to create the class object?
Is equal to new
New class name. What is the
class
class
name.
name? Is the class name. This one, right? If you observe here how we created the objects, same, right? This is how we created the object here, correct? Is that enough? But do we have a constructor method for this class or not? when
Yes,
that
sir.
constructor method is going to be executed?
Whenever create the object.
Whenever we create the object. Does that constructor method have any inputs or not?
Yes.
What is the constructor? Is it having any importing parameters? It's having, right? Language. Right? There is one input we need to pass to this constructor method. Is it optional input or mandatory input?
Mandatory.
Mandatory.
Mandatory input.
When you are creating the object, you have to pass that as input. You have to pass the importing parameters also, whatever the importing parameters you have. Okay? If it is not an optional one, let's define one object. Types pras. Let's populate some value inside the program. LV underscore LANG equal to some English, right? EN, I think E is enough. Now pass this here. Both are same types or not? LV lang and whatever the parameter, importing parameter we are using in the inside the constructor. Spras, the type is pras. Here also we are taking type as pras. Both are compatible or not? Compatible only, right? Now I'm passing language as input for the constructor method when I'm creating the object. That is the difference we have to observe, right? A class with constructor and without a constructor, right? Here we don't have any constructor in this class. That's why we did not pass any inputs in the attribute, sorry, creating the object. Now let's call the other method. What is the other method we have? Read material text, right? Go to pattern, ABAP object patterns. This is a class. Select the method. The constructor method is not available here because we cannot call the constructor method explicitly. Looks like I placed the cursor in the incorrect position. Let me copy and paste here. Enable this pretty printer. Can you turn off the video, Bhavan? Okay. Then what is the input for this? Are we providing any input for this method? Read material text. We don't have any inputs. We are just returning the output. Please observe, right? We are just returning the output. We are not passing any input here. What is the input for this read material? Attribute data, whatever the data available in the attribute. Okay. Now, okay, we'll return the output. We'll use some what type of method it is? CL demo output display. What type of method it is?
Class method.
Not class method. It's a static method. It's a static method, right? That's why we are using class this reference to call the method. We are not creating the object. Activate it. Now we'll keep breakpoints. We'll keep breakpoints in all the methods. I'll keep one breakpoint in constructor and I'll keep another breakpoint in this method. And also keep breakpoint here, a data statement. So we have populated the language and we created the object and it is inside the constructor method now, right? And we populated 10 records to the attribute. This is attribute, right? Class attribute, correct? So in which observe the debugger, in which method we are in which class we are in. This is the class and this is the method. Okay. Clear? Now constructor execution is completed. F5. Now we're at data statement, still at object creation. So our object is created. Next, the other method is executing. So this is the exporting parameter which returns the output. This is not importing. This is not input. Okay. F5. Do you have data for the attribute or not? We have 10 records. So this method, this read material text method is accessing the attribute data, right? Are we providing any importing parameters for this method? Are we passing any data to this method as importing parameter? No, right? This is accessing attribute data. This method is accessing attribute data. Similarly, all the other methods can also access this attribute data because this attribute data is global to all the classes. Sorry, not all the classes, but all the methods of the class, right? So delete adjacent, we are using a temporary internal table. Select, we are able to select material text data. We have 4 records it seems. I think we have missed the language key. Okay, please pass the language key. Return to the calling program and display the output, right? Is it clear for everyone how to access attributes data? Clear or not?
Yes, sir.
Now I'll see one more small thing. What is the select statement we have used to select the data by using attribute data as input? We used for all entries, right?
For all entries.
Current.
Shall we show one small alternative for all entries? We can also use join. We can also use join here. We can also join internal table and other table instead of for all entries. Let's see that how we can join it. Let me comment this. Instead of for all entries, you can use inner join also. How to write inner join? Select. From, or we'll select some one more record also because there is join doesn't make sense. Okay, we'll select data from that internal table also. We'll select EBL and EBLP also. What is that internal table? Sorry, attribute ZTPO data, right? ZTPO data contains EBLN, EBLP, and material number and MAKT is from MAKT tables. From, how to join internal table? We are joining internal table and database table. Okay, how to write this? From internal table, we have to do small change, but please observe now. What is the next statement? I'm writing just like our previous join statements. So inner join on, what is the join condition? Equal to, sorry, Matner, right? The common field is Matner, right? Matner
Yes.
equal to MAKT Matner. That's it. Into, sorry, into what? Into our exporting parameter. But our exporting parameter structure is different. We have to change that. Okay?
Sir, inner join with MAKT.
Table name. Table. Inner
Ah,
join
right,
name.
right, right. Inner join MAKT on. Yeah. So we are using this exporting parameter, right? Both having same structure. This ET underscore material text and this structure both are different, right? Here we are selecting EBLN and EBLP also. Is this exporting parameter compatible with the data selection? No, right? Let's change this types. Let me add two more fields to this type structure. Where is this? Here, right? We'll add two more fields. I just wanted to show how to join internal table with the database table. Type. Now both are compatible, right? This type structure and our data selection both are compatible, right? In the same order. Go to methods. Go to read material text. Now both are in same order, right? EBLN, EBLP, material and MAKT. So you can directly use our exporting parameter. Check the syntax. What is it saying? ZTPO data is not declared as a table, projection view or database view. So it is saying it is not a table, right? Is it a table? Is it a database table? No, right? What is this?
Attribute.
This is an internal
Internal.
table, or just
Yeah.
assume it as an internal table. Attribute, yeah, anyway, it's attribute, but it's an internal table also, right? So it's an internal table, it's not a database table. Now, see, how can we join internal table? For that, what we need to use? We need to use alias names. What we need to use? Alias names, right? Not tilde operator, as a. Here also replace the actual internal table with this alias name. This is called alias. We are assigning a name, alias name. Okay, clear? Now check. Instead of MAKT, you can also use alias name or BCD. For each table, you can assign one alias name. Okay. Hmm. CT underscore PO data. Let me change, let me assign alias name to everyone as B, MAKT as B, B. Here also we need to change. What we need to use here? In place of this, use alias name A. In place of MAKT, use alias name B. Correct? So don't, here we are not using table references. We are using alias names. In normal join also you can use these alias names. Okay, this is not specific to the join with internal table. In the normal joins also you can use these alias names. So this is how you can join a internal table with the database table, right? Instead of for all entries, you can write this. But we can, as of now, we can join only one internal table. I never tried joining 2 or 3 internal tables with database tables. I tried one internal table as of now. Okay, check the syntax. What is the error?
Sir, after into
Into table, right? Into table. It's internal table structure, right? Check the syntax. I think we need to use @ symbol here, escape sign, right? By using escape sign, we are making it as a, we are not making it as a table, but we are assuming it as a table. Okay, so no syntax error. So this is how we can join internal table with the database table. Instead of for all entries, you can use this. Okay, activate this. To join internal table, what is important? You have to use these alias names. Okay, and you have to use this escape sign, right, for the table. Sorry, that internal table. It is very easy, right? So that we don't need to check all these conditions for all entries, correct? Because if we don't check these conditions, right, what will happen? If there is no data inside this, or if they are not in sorted order, it will select all the records from that MAKT table. It will ignore the where condition if these for all entry statements are failed, right? What it will do, it will ignore the where condition. It will select all the records. That's why we are checking this. Now go back to your program. Let me relaunch the program since I have made some changes in the method. I'm reopening the program. Execute the program. Oh, not this one, right? This one. Execute. So creating the object. Now constructor should execute. I'm clicking on F7. It should take me to the calling program again. So I'm clicking on F6. It is executed in a single step and we got the data, right? Display the output. Since we are using inline declaration here, you don't need to worry about changing this calling program structure, this internal table structure in the program, right? Whatever the exporting parameter it returns, it will create internal table with same type, right? If you define it explicitly, you need to change it again, right? Since we are using inline declaration, you don't need to worry about structural changes inside the exporting parameter. Is everyone clear on this? So the very important interview questions from the topics what we have discussed today. What is constructor method? What are the attributes? What is a static attribute and what is a instance attribute? Difference between, yeah, they lost the difference. So the difference between instance method and static method, and how to join internal table with the database table. I think that's it, right? Yeah. And how to call the constructor method. How to call the constructor method? It will automatically call when you are creating the object. You just need to pass the input if they have one input, or right? Is everyone clear on this?
Yes, sir.